Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains. My name is Beth, Karow, and Cheryl Morris joins me as co-leader for this morning's Sunday service. This is a tapestry service, woven with words offered up by folks within our congregation, and drawing from questions asked in the Soul Matters small group packet for the month of May. It's the final Sunday of the month where we have been exploring the theme of nurturing beauty. We're blessed by the musical talents of Toby Thomas Rose and Dahlia Sanders, and with the help of our outstanding audio-visual team, Jesse, Siobhan, Andy. We are live on site in our church building in Grass Valley, California. We're also live on Zoom for members and visitors near and far. And Eileen Hale is serving as our chat host. And hopefully we'll be on YouTube at a later date. We usually are. For those of you in the building today, please take a moment now to make sure that your phones are silenced as Corey Silva comes forward to give our land acknowledgement.
In our commitment to be in right relationship with the descendants of this area's indigenous people, we place a small basket of black oak acorns on our altar each week. In doing so, we acknowledge the Nisenan people are still here among us today, though nearly invisible, after generations of erasure and exclusion from California's history. We understand we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, and the original tribal families have yet to recover from the genocide of their people. As residents or visitors in Nisenan land, we support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people, as well as the campaign to restore tribal sovereignty through federal recognition.
Good morning. I'm Cheryl Morris, happy to be joining Beth as worship associate today. Do you remember her standing up here for the first service in May, declaring, "Mayday, Mayday"? She played with various meanings of the word throughout the service. I wonder what we should call today. Maybe May's End, June's Eve. Actually, May Day continues to seem appropriate to me in light of the events of the past week. All month, we have been exploring the theme, Nurturing Beauty. It's been a lively month, celebrating flowers, music, dance, written words, and each other. We've looked at beauty as we create it, and at the ways beauty nurtures us. At the heart of every service has been the beauty of this congregation. It is this particular aspect of beauty that sustains us through sad times, deepens our joy during happy times, and sometimes motivates us toward taking action. It's hard to keep joy and beauty and nurture in mind when we are bombarded with terrible news and images. The school shooting coming right after the massacre in Buffalo, the increase in COVID cases and other illnesses that has included a number of our members, monkeypox, for goodness sake. Of course, the war in Ukraine, politics, drought, the list seems endless. We need all the nurturing that we can get. And now that our month is ending, can we sustain our awareness of beauty? Can we see it as a lens we can choose to look through? I've heard it said that anything can be beautiful, although that's a stretch for me. I'm looking forward to hearing what our tapestry speakers have to say about it. It does seem that truly beauty is in the eye of the beholder. This is also Memorial Day weekend, which will hold different meanings for each of us. We are a congregation that values diversity in backgrounds, beliefs, and relationships. However we choose to observe Memorial Day and into the weeks and months ahead, let us keep our eyes and hearts and minds open to finding beauty, sometimes where we least expect it. Welcome. I'm so glad we're together on this beautiful morning. Our community is filled with beauty.
When you open the door to greet me, that's where beauty begins.
When you share with me what's important to you, beauty is there as I listen.
When we join hands to practice compassion, beauty's heart blooms like a flower.
When we teach or learn or work for justice, beauty abounding sparks joy in all.
Let's light the chalice for beauty now. The beauty we seek, the beauty we share, the beauty we nurture together. And I invite you to light your chalices at home if you have them.
The Beauty Woven Fine by Reverend Scott Taylor. As we celebrate life's beauty, may we never forget that we are part of it. It is woven around us, through us, and between us. We are here to notice those elegant strands, the way they call to us, the way they hold us, the way they connect us. May our time together today enable that beauty to shine.
The ceremonies and that are performed are to help us to have the spiritual strength or emotional strength, the mental strength or the physical strength to encounter fears. The term walking in beauty, the teaching associated with Wajongo na shadow is to say that may I walk in beauty, or Wajongo de dado sometimes is said in that way, which means we will walk in beauty. But walking in beauty has its origin with the teachings of coming from the first world, being brought into existence by a male and a female holy people in the first world, in the world where there's no surface, in the world where there is mist, in the world where it is gray and dark, and then eventually growing in greater awareness and intelligence so we could go into the second world, which is the blue world. And in the blue world, we became spirit beings, or air beings sometimes is what they refer to, but it actually is that we became spirit beings. And we continued to grow in greater awareness and greater intelligence until we could progress into the third world. The third world is where we are at now. The yellow world, because of the yellow sun, the moon, the stars, the fire, and the corn pollen, and all of the pollen of all vegetation and life forms, which is vegetation, insect, birds, and animals, and even the five-fingered being, which is us. We are five-fingered beings because we have five senses of sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing. And these senses can get us into a lot of trouble. So if you hold up your hand, there are four spaces between the five fingers. These are the sacred, invisible senses that we are supposed to use in combination with our physical senses as we journey through life, so we don't make so many errors as we journey through life. But the story of walking in beauty, actually, when we came into this world from the previous world, we arrived as a spirit being. When we entered this physical form, we let out a cry. We become an emotional being for the very first time. And then as we expressed ourselves with that cry, somebody picked us up and cared for us. And we become a thinking being for the very first time. And then as a thinking being, we become aware of our physical environment and our physical self. So it is that we are told we are four beings in one: a spirit being, an emotional being, a thinking being, and a physical being. Now here in this world, in the third world, it is our responsibility to grow greater aware and greater intelligence in the four areas of our being: spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and our physical environment. But there's something that will stop you, and that is fear. And fear, there are four types of fear. There's spiritual fear, emotional fear, mental fear, and physical fear. They're all very real. And they will stop you from growing in those areas of your being, anoseto, which means to grow. And so all the things that we are told is that we must be willing to encounter our fears. Now, some of the ceremonies and that are performed are to help us to have the spiritual strength or emotional strength, the mental strength or the physical strength to encounter fears. But as we encounter our fears, it is our individual responsibility to make that effort. And when we encounter the fears, you can never conquer fear or destroy it. It's always going to be there. But you can learn how to get beyond it. And when you do, you are rewarded with four very special gifts. And those gifts are joy and happiness, confidence, and peace. Those are the things that we strive to do in this life. And so walking in beauty involves encountering fears spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically, and getting beyond them so that we can have joy and happiness and confidence and peace in the 4 areas of our being. And that's what it means to walk in beauty, when you can acquire those various forms of peace in your entire being. That's what we are told.
This weekend, our country is observing Memorial Day, first known as Decoration Day, where graves of fallen soldiers were cleaned and decorated with flowers, with ribbons and flags in a sacred act of remembrance. I'm struck with the idea that this decorating is one of the most visible ways we deal with the grief of loss. We bring flowers to grave sites, plant crosses on dangerous roadsides, prop stuffed animals against schoolyard fences. And we gather. We gather to help each other, to find comfort in the presence of community experiencing tragedy, witnessing each other's pain, looking for hope in each other's faces when finding meaning is impossibly hard. And to celebrate what we can. For we know that even in the darkest times, there is light. Milestones like graduations, the birth of babies and grandbabies, accomplishments, anniversaries, birthdays, and triumphs large and small mark our road together as surely as the piles of rocks set up along the way as memorials to our grief. Both and. And now we have the opportunity, if we choose, to share in our small ritual, where the dropping of these stones that we brought in, symbols of what we carry with us, into this bowl of water, the container symbolizing the community we form together, and the water, a universal solvent, source, and solace. Eternal and ephemeral at once, gentle and strong enough to hold all that needs holding. Those online will have the opportunity to type a brief note into the chat, and I will read aloud some of the cares and concerns that are shared. As Toby plays music, I invite you, whether or not you choose to come forward or type into the chat, to sit in a quiet meditation for each other and for all that we hold in our hearts and minds today. I placed one last stone, a big one, into the bowl of water. And I am happy to report that even with all the stones that were placed, and most people placed multiple stones, there was room. There was plenty of room. It's good to know. Indeed, and we know that there is lots more that didn't come to the surface this morning, that remain too tender to share yet in the depths of our hearts and our minds. The ongoing pandemic surge, Russia's brutal aggression towards the people of Ukraine, and more mass shootings this week have taken so many precious lives and left behind so much grief. Here's what Abigail Benson was inspired to write this week. You'll remember her. She and her husband sang that really neat song, the Keep Going On song that we shared. Yeah. She writes, "I'm just so sorry. There's grief, and then more grief, and then more." Hopefully not more. The grief is holy. And in a culture that encourages our collective amnesia and then requires it as a means of survival, grief is a well of memory that keeps us human and alive. So we grieve and are blessed to grieve. Depression That terrible stagnation of rage and shame is not grief. It's the body in a state of arrest, unable to grieve the way it needs to keep you alive. I am grateful for your grieving. Every drop of grief work you do, every tear you shed waters the heart of the earth. Every drop of grief you allow to move through you is a drop that will water food for our children, instead of becoming a leaden burden they have to carry for us that gets heavier each generation. Grief work is a gift you give to your kids and your ancestors, to the planet, and to your own wildly and perfectly made soul. Sometimes I think your spirit goes looking for you and uses your tears as tracks in the dark woods to find you. I'll say that again. Sometimes I think your spirit goes looking for you and uses your tears as tracks in the dark woods to find you. Let them flow. I'm weeping beside you. And I will add this. There is beauty to be found everywhere. Even in the dark woods, there is a light within. Even in profound suffering, there is comfort to be found. This beauty is called simply love. May we feel ourselves loved as we walk this road together and alone. May we be and give and receive over and over love. Amen and blessed be.
Join me. Now I walk in beauty. Beauty is before me. Beauty is behind me, above and below me. Two more.
Many of you are aware of Soul Matters, a program that our church subscribes to, which includes themed monthly packets full of poems, songs, quotes, readings, and more for small groups, for family ministry, and for worship. The Soul Matters circles meet monthly to discuss exercises and questions posed in the small group packet. And it was with these questions in mind that Cheryl and I asked for contributions to today's service. Although, as usually happens, both in the planning of services and in the small groups, sometimes in the pondering of these questions, we're led elsewhere. It's a starting point, and we go from there. So here are the opening words from this month's packet. Beauty. We appreciate it. How could we not? We wonder at it, get absorbed in it. Analyze it if it's got a frame around it. We make it, grow it, point at it, collect it, share it, save it. But how often do we listen to it? How often do we ask, what is it trying to get me to hear? Rather than, do I like it or not? It's just so hard to step outside our mangled view of the world that sees everything in the light of consumption. Not everything is here for our possession. Not everything is here to entertain us. Not everything is meant to be put to use. Even you. We must find our way back to those questions that were once alive but are now buried deep. What if beauty is here to make us wise? What if beauty is the way the sacred speaks? Yes. Yes, it does so much more than decorate. It demands, it calls, it asks for commitment. It just doesn't say, love and appreciate me. It says, protect me, fight for me. It steps out in front of us and points to a precious world that needs our help. It paints a picture of new ways of living and declares, follow me there. It says, even in hellholes, I find a way to grow. It sings, this world was made for more than work. It whispers, use me to heal. It pleads, nurture a new relationship with me, one that allows me to talk. So, what is it saying to you? Let's hear from some of our congregation now.
The beauty in austerity. An eagle's call, a hawk's, thin, sharp, piercing, riding in the thin, dry air. Fire planes are here already, whining through the dry air, looking for fire. When fire burns it all away, all that stuff you don't need, and some you do. How to come to peace with the gaping hole? Well, you can't. Not when it's still bleeding, still raw. And even years later, when the time is right to revisit, you'll reopen the wounds, wash them with floods of sobbing tears. Tears in the fabric of your life, floods torn from you when the dam is breached, setting back into place the skeleton of your being, that which was wrenched, pulled out of true like a gammy ankle. All those years ago and in the years since, only then, after the bleeding and the floods and the sobbing you thought would pull you inside out, only then does that bare washed room begin to shine with its beauty.
You want me to talk about beauty, right? To somehow capture it in words? Okay. I went to the Home and Garden Show at the fairgrounds last month, hoping to get help with black widow spiders in the backyard. I was also looking forward to a Lazy Dog ice cream bar, which I planned to enjoy while listening to live music. And there was a local bonsai show, and maybe I'd find a contractor for the bathroom remodel we're considering. Many booths later, although I'd enjoyed myself, I hadn't turned up much in the way of solutions. Oh well. And then down Gold Path, past the familiar K&CO booth, I rounded the corner to the large open door of the Sugar Pine building. I don't know what I expected, but the whole exhibit area was filled with rows of tables, each with dozens of thoughtfully presented bonsai. Slowly, I began to walk the aisles, savoring the individual plants, amazed at the presence of these timeless creatures in Grass Valley. Many were just stunning examples of patience and skill. Tiny ones in 2-inch pots, tall ones reaching 18 inches or more in height, young ones little more than hope in a pot, and ancient ones, some certainly more than 100 years old. There were species cultivated in Japan for centuries, and others collected in the wild Sierra, reeking of rocky, windswept origins, all consistently bearing the touch of a master's hand. Wow. And then last Wednesday, without actually planning it, I found myself wandering the classic paths of the San Francisco Japanese tea garden. On Thursday, I chanced into the magnificent Bancroft succulent garden in Walnut Creek. And would you believe, I ended up at the extraordinary Lake Merritt Bonsai Garden on Friday. Oh my God. Over and over and over, these amazing landscapes and stunning individual plants swept me away from my ordinary mind and time frame to a sensed, tentacular experience in the absence of mission, of a specific goal other than just to be there. Something magical can happen as the eternal present encounters the infinity of creation. It's the kind of transformative experience words can't capture. So that's enough words.
Before me, beauty is behind me, above and below me.
Good morning. Photography and the art of seeing. Have you ever looked up from what you're concentrating on and felt the delight of colors, forms, shapes, and brilliance of what you see around you? As if your eyes woke up all of a sudden and you're seeing beauty without planning to. That's what painting a photograph does for me. Moving millions of bits around on a screen, changing color, shapes, light, creating eye-catching lines that can transform a snapshot into a work of art. Editing a photo is intended to manage the viewer's eye. leading them to a subject, the element that motivated taking the picture in the first place, a flower, a bird, a person, natural objects, man-made, all this, and then I look up as if my eyes were cleaned. A smile emerges as I look around, seeing art everywhere in life. I call the experience the art of seeing. It's like what I learned as a Boy Scout. We became keenly aware of anything that moved in the dense northeastern forest, from a bird to a bug. The more we looked, the more we saw. Remember the animal trackers who could follow a trail through the wilderness that no one else could even see? They perfected their seeing. In photography, we get a second chance to see. First, it's with the camera, and second, with our computers. As with any art, there are tools like the camera. It provides a canvas, flat, specific size, and more importantly, a moment, only a moment in time, captured once, but it can be enjoyed forever. The sound, the smell, the weight, the feeling, everything that was there when the shutter clicked remain only as memories. The second chance is through computer software, which has evolved over the past decades into an enormous toolkit. And the photographer wants to craft the instant of a baby's giggle, a mountain sunset, into a visual memory. With over 100 adjustments ready in the software, there's almost no limit to artistic prerogative. You want more color? Click the saturation adjustment. So where is the photographer in this creativity studio? The same place as the painter is? Maybe. But the photographer starts with a photo of something. It's a bit like, hate to admit this, painting by the numbers. But with time, creativity can be unlimited. It feels like immersion in a visual world, and when you emerge, everything you see is full of beautiful photographic opportunities. I'm looking around and seeing lots of opportunities now. You have been in the zone. The performer creating your own stage, feeling the audience presence in your artistic mind. Indeed, if your transformed digital canvas is experienced as art, the warm glow of satisfaction. Maybe that's what defines art, that inner glow, the sharing of seeing.
I always appreciated my dad's love of the middle path and practice of looking at what is, which informed or augmented his love of the word and literature. When I was in college, he sent me a Bukowski poem about poor folk enjoying some Jell-O on a curbside. And here's the Bukowski poem. It's called Chilled Green. What is it? An old woman, fat, yellow dress, torn stockings, sitting on the curbing with a little boy. 98 degrees at 3 in the afternoon. It seems obscene, but look, they're calm, almost happy. They eat green Jell-O and the red roses shine. So knowing him cultivated a certain sense of looking at things, and I thought of this poem recently while looking at a hawthorn tree in a parking lot. In the unlikeliest of places, the little hawthorn tree, symbol of purity, protection, and Christ's crown, sparkled with red berries and deep green and yellow leaves. My dad passed recently, and I again reflected on his subtle wisdom. I feel that he placed a particular stack of books in the guest room where I stayed when his Parkinson's progressed and I came to help my mom take care of him. The two books are Bruce Chatwin's The Songlines and Saul Bellows' Seize the Day. We had some good conversations, but there was much sorrow between us, and the stress of the situation disturbed our middle way calm, and both of us went in and out of our customary good humor into regret. I started reading Seize the Day, but was afraid to read further as some of the conflicts within it reflected our own. Then later I read the songlines and came across a heartbreaking passage about Moses who didn't cross the Jordan into the promised land, something I never understood. The image was of Moses feeling his way with a stick to make sure he doesn't trip on the tent ropes. As if he knows his fate, he walks on knowing his people are moving to a greener country. The Songlines is an exploration of Aboriginal culture, but also a meditation on faith. And it was hard to have faith when my dad's muscles started stiffening up and he had trouble pushing up with his legs from the chair or getting into bed. His right side froze, and then we called hospice and thought he'd be in palliative care for a while, but he passed suddenly. We were really shocked, and I felt like we didn't get to properly say goodbye, and it was hard. Later, I got the courage to finish reading Seize the Day. My dad had always enjoyed a good anti-hero, and I wasn't sure how the book would resolve. It concludes with the lost protagonist wandering into a stranger's funeral after having a kind of a visionary, oppressive epiphany within a sea of humanity containing the totality of I am. It sort of epitomized a detached awareness of all the types of humans and their various longings, but then he stumbles into the church and he experiences a very personal sense of compassion for the man he sees laying in state. And Saul Bellows says the source of all tears suddenly sprang open within him, and he decides, the protagonist, to follow his heart in making decisions about his life. So I felt the outstretched hand of my father behind this. He had an inkling I might seek some wisdom in the book stack, which reverberated with so much personal meaning. So in this way, even though we didn't experience the perfect goodbye entirely marked by grace, I feel it was actually a beautiful goodbye because we got to enjoy each other's company while I was staying there, talking about things we were reading some of the time, and by placing the books where I could find them, continuing that conversation on into the future and strengthening our connection in divine love forever. And I think he wanted me to cultivate my faith, and even though he struggled with it and wanted me to think for myself, he was kind enough to provide signposts along the way and in a synchronous way to enlarge my sense of time and my openness to the to the mystery of faith. So, thank you.
Now I walk in beauty. Beauty is before me. Beauty is behind me. Above and below me.
Good afternoon. I think it's almost afternoon. I find it difficult to talk about beauty. It is so overshadowed by the horror of the past weeks, and yet there's still beauty. There's beauty in our anger, our grief, our sadness, and there's beauty in how we're holding this event and wanting to change it. I love and find beauty in the gray squirrels who visit my yard, always looking for food, and the big skunk scurrying through my yard a few feet from my back door. Or the bear asleep with a full belly of birdseed from the bag he had emptied. I spotted the bear slowly looking up from his nap, slowly began to move out of my yard. I quietly watched from the door. Then the deer often stand on my deck and watch me from the door, and some run away wherever they see me. Some are barely yearlings, and some have their first horns. The does, young and old, watch carefully for any unusual movement, lifting their heads at the slightest sound. I'm touched by the beauty of these creatures who are so different from me and yet so much a part of my life. I also watch all the birds and listen to them as they sing and often scold one another. They are noisy as they strut and fly through the yard, sometimes finding a feeder. I'm grateful for how much beauty there is in my life, the beauty of the people who visit, share their joys and sorrows with me, bring me joy. We laugh together and sometimes cry. We share our anger, and sometimes in the heat of the moment, we swear loudly at the state of the world. We are our real, vulnerable selves. We are in the present moment with our histories that go back many generations. Sometimes we know how they still live in our bodies, and sometimes we don't know. I know sometimes we find our souls in the deepest part of ourselves that may have been waiting a long time to be discovered. Often we're simply quiet with each other, reflective, and deeply connected to our being. I find that the gathering of human beings bring with them much beauty and is often unrecognized. When my family gathers, I am struck by the diversity and the beauty of being together, having a good time. My daughter and her wife, whom I married, are there. My grandchildren, Black, Native American, East Indian, Finnish, and a mixture of everything else, and also my great-grandchildren, who are mostly Black. I love and find so much beauty in this diverse family. We carry the history of many places and have come together. My special joy is my two great-grandchildren who reflect this diversity in the very presence. We are together. The beauty is breathtaking. They then leave, and I sit in the beauty of the experience, smiling, sometimes crying. Moved by the beauty, and I look out the window, and the birds are singing, and the squirrels are jumping through the trees, and slowly the deer return. I walk out to the front deck and sit with a glass of wine and watch the glory of the setting sun, listen to the frogs, hope I can stay awake long enough to watch for the stars to appear, or the dark clouds that may bring rain, hoping to see a sliver of the moon, a full moon, or any moon at all. I suppose the beauty that moves me most is when the energy in my house and my body seems special, more radiant and a different quality of energy than I usually experience. And all the space is filled with a special, unexplainable beauty, holding me gently and safely. Thank you so much for listening.
I walk in beauty. Beauty is before me. Beauty is behind me, above and below me.
This poem, Invisible Trail, has 2 words of Maidu that I didn't translate within the poem. They are Chistataku, which is robin, and Sawali, which is squirrel. Invisible Trail. Today I followed the invisible trail of ground and breath and small sips of delight, while I caught up my checkbook entries and bank statements, savoring my neat, sweet writing and trying to release the middle 3 cervical vertebrae. This, while gathering all the papers needed for our short sale, which, even though the real estate agents and office staff are holding our hands through it, still, one more time having to nail down budget figures, decide how to present income figures, decipher what's wanted to put for real estate tax and for personal property tax, feels like something that makes my head scream. Or maybe I can conjure those figures. Guesstimate is a pleasing thought. Coax them all into adding up to the right amount of not enough. But meanwhile, the rain is sweet, and I go up to our old place in warm rain mist, smelling delicious. I say ha-ha to the big oak in front, and the lulim cha, the redbud I planted, that's doing well, and the irises, and the moonmony, mugwort, that I will dig up some of to take with me. I remember the Maidu words I have spoken to the cedars and the firs, the Chistataku and the Sawali, in the time we lived here. And in my heart, there are ribbons of color. Amid the plodding gray, I thought this life had to be.
Beauty is before me. Beauty is behind me, above and below me.
I want to call your attention to the slide Carol selected to introduce the offering and the dedication. I know it's not there now, but you'll get another look at it. Her choice of smiling children pays tribute to the children murdered this week and to the work done week after week by child advocates of Nevada County. The children in the picture are in costume. Some of them no doubt superheroes, but we know children are not superheroes, and we know we need to protect them. 25 Thank you. 25% of our offering this week, or more if you so choose, will go to our Share the Plate partner, Child Advocates of Nevada County. You've been hearing me talk about child advocates all month, so I'm not going to read you their mission statement. But I will remind you that their work is heavily dependent not only on financial donations, but on service given by volunteers. If you feel called to do something that directly benefits the most vulnerable children in our community, I can think of no better organization to support. Now you can listen to Allison, and she'll tell you your options for making a contribution.
Your generosity remains essential to our ability to sustain the work of our community. There are several ways to contribute. You may text an amount to 833-579-0483, give via our website at uugrassvalley.org, via PayPal at paypal.me/UUCM, or mail to UUCM 246 South Church Street, Grass Valley, California, 95945. Thank you.
Thank you for your generosity. We dedicate these gifts to doing all we can so all children grow up safely and happily, that they may find beauty in their world.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, for being my worship associate all month. Oof. Yes. It's gone by quickly. Can you believe it's June almost? Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Dahlia. What a beautiful voice and beautiful song selection. Thank you. Thank you. And Toby, thank you so much for joining us. The talent in your family is astounding and mind-blowing. Thank you to our audio-visual team. Thank you so much for the sounds and the sights, for Eileen online manning the chat host role, for our tapestry speakers, Lisa, Ruth, Scotty, Jim, and Eileen. Thank you so much. Carmen, for this gorgeous piece of spirit work. Please take a moment to check it out. Don't touch, but look. And Linda, for this gorgeous altar, which was beautiful before she brought in the flowers this morning, but the flowers just add so much to it. Reverend Kevin gave so much assistance with video editing, and I'm sure I'm missing someone. Oh, our greeters, Corey and Teresa. Oh, and reading our land acknowledgement and the opening words. Anyway, so many people it takes to put together these Sunday services week after week, and for your contribution to whatever you do to give to our church. Thank you so much for making it happen. Okay. Let's sing. Stand if you're willing and able and would like to. Enjoy these beautiful slides.
Source of all to
closing words, this world is too beautiful. This world is too beautiful to be praised by only one voice. May you have the courage to sing your part.
The world is too broken to be healed by only one set of hands. May you have the courage to use your gifts.
May you go in peace. And though we extinguish our chalice here and at home, we know that we will together carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.